So let me first say on Taiwan, and I think I made this point myself, either on the trip in China or thereafter when we returned. There's been no change to U.S. policy towards Taiwan. We just had a massive arms sales, and it was so big and so noticeable that the Chinese became very aggressive about it and some of the incursions they undertook as a result of it.
Rubio moves to contain the fallout after questions over U.S. weapons snub to Taiwan. Rubio defends U.S. foreign policy as Trump and Xi reopen military communication channels. After Trump-Xi talks, Rubio says there has been no change in Washington's policy on Taiwan. Rubio responds as Trump urges Xi to avoid misunderstandings and keep tensions from spiraling. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on June 2nd that there has been no change in Washington's policy on Taiwan. Rubio told lawmakers that foreign policy often means choosing between two less-than-ideal options. He also argued that the United States remains the world's only global superpower and its most powerful country.
Sometimes in foreign policy, the choices are not between a good choice and a bad choice. It's between two less-than-ideal choices, and you're trying to figure out which one of these two choices is the one that is best for the United States and least harmful to our interests. And that plays out every single day. That said, we remain the world's sole global superpower, the most powerful country on earth. We have the largest economy. We have the most formidable and powerful military ever known to man, by the way. We now have in this hemisphere a coalition of friendly countries, over a dozen, who have aligned to work on not just the issues of security that we all have in common, but also economic prosperity that go hand in hand. It's an amazing story that basically, other than Nicaragua, other than Cuba, obviously other than Venezuela, it remains with some challenges, and of course Brazil, although they're in the midst of an election cycle, and to some extent the current government in Colombia as well, at least the president's been problematic. But generally speaking, it is now a region filled with American allies, American-friendly leaders, and an America-friendly direction. Now, obviously, we have to operationalize that into action after 20 years of neglect, in which China and other global powers have intruded in our Western Hemisphere to the detriment not just of American national interest, but to the detriment, in our view, of the people of those countries as well. And so let me first say on Taiwan, and I think I made this point myself, either on the trip in China or thereafter when we returned. There's been no change to U.S. policy towards Taiwan. I think there's, obviously the Chinese side would like to see a change in the verbiage, but no change has been made in that regard. We just had a massive arms sales, and it was so big and so noticeable that the Chinese became very aggressive about it and some of the incursions they undertook as a result of it. And as I said, it was more in one sale than we did in the entirety of the Biden administration, if I'm correct, and I think I am on that point. So, but the most important thing to understand is we want to see the status quo preserved, as is at this moment. That's our policy. That's what we've said. That's what we continue to say. It's a very, as you know, a very delicate relationship to balance. But our policy on Taiwan is not changing, and did not change on this trip. You know, for a long period of time, our relations with Armenia were quite stagnant, and in many cases, I would argue, almost non-existent. It has also reinvigorated that relationship between our two countries and allow us to explore opportunities in all sorts of other fields. So we're involved in that very heavily now. We literally just signed the agreement, and it will allow us to drive and hopefully incentivize U.S. private sector investment in this corridor to the benefit of American companies and American interests, but also to the benefit of Armenia, Azerbaijan, and other regional countries. I would also argue, by the way, and just to point out, and I don't mean this again, I think this is pretty well understood in the open source reporting, the Russians are less than happy about our engagement there. I think there's evidence that they would like the current president to lose his election as a result of this growing relationship with the United States. To be clear, we're not there to infringe on Armenian sovereignty. We're not asking them not to be friends with other countries. We just want to be able to have a relationship with them that's built not just on peace. Peace is important, but that's just the beginning. It's the economic opportunities that it provides. There are American companies and American workers that will benefit from it, but the Armenian people will be the ultimate beneficiaries of this corridor opening.
His remarks came after reports that the U.S. and China had held maritime military safety talks. According to reports, Chinese and U.S. military officials held maritime safety talks in Hawaii on May the 28th and 29th. The meeting marked the first formal round of military-to-military communication since Xi Jinping hosted Donald Trump, signaling a cautious attempt to reopen high-level defense channels. Senior U.S. officials from Indo-Pacific Command, the Pacific Fleet, U.S. Air Forces and the Coast Guard all attended the talks, underscoring Washington's multi-branch approach to maritime safety. China's PLA Navy said both sides conducted candid and constructive exchanges based on mutual respect, suggesting that the discussions directly addressed points of friction rather than avoiding them. Beijing explicitly linked the Hawaii talks to strategic understandings reached during the recent Xi-Trump summit, portraying them as a concrete follow-up to leaders-level diplomacy. During the meeting, China reiterated its opposition to what it calls actions that threaten its sovereignty under the banner of freedom of navigation, especially in contested maritime zones. The PLA also condemned what it describes as close-in reconnaissance and military provocations near Chinese territory, accusing U.S. forces of operating too close to its claimed boundaries. For its part, the U.S. said commanders focused on ways to prevent unsafe and unprofessional encounters at sea, including clearer communication and behavior rules for frontline units. The talks took place against a backdrop of rising tensions in both the South China Sea and East China Sea, where several U.S. allies are locked in territorial disputes with Beijing. Despite the Hawaii meeting, China and the U.S. continue to trade accusations over their respective military activities across these disputed waters, highlighting how fragile the current de-escalation efforts remain. During the talks, China also claimed it had driven away a Dutch frigate operating near the disputed Paracel Islands, framing the incident as an example of its resolve to enforce what it sees as its maritime rights. Beijing accused the Dutch vessel of increasing the risk of misjudgment and escalation in the area, a charge that The Hague firmly rejected, insisting its ship was acting lawfully in international waters.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that we will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry guards.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.